Hello friends, myself Pratik. In previous session I have given you an assignment to build unit test cases for grade remark function where we have two preconditions that grade should be int or float and grade should be greater than or equal to 1 and grade should be less than or equal to 100. And we have to build unit test cases for this function if all of these preconditions are enforced by assert statement. Here we are having the code of grade remark function where both the preconditions that grade should be integer or float or grade should be greater than 0 and less than or equal to 100 are enforced through assert statement. Now in this session we are discussing the solution to build unit test cases if preconditions are enforced through assert statement. We have to tackle it in a different way. In order to understand this process in a simple way, let us first consider the simple code of this grade function. Here, we are just returning A if marks is greater than 60, else we are returning B. And here again we are enforcing two preconditions that marks should be integer or float. And if they are not integer or float, we are returning appropriate message. And second condition is marks should be positive. And if this precondition is not enforced, we are again returning appropriate message. So let us first discuss the unit test cases for this grade remark function. So here I have created simple unit test to check all the boundary cases. So here for 60 grade should be B, for 61 grade should be A, and for 10 grade should be B. If all of these conditions mentioned in assert are true, then we are printing all unit are passed. So it's important to note that here we have not checked preconditions. We are simply checking our boundary cases. So let us run this code. So this code is working perfectly fine. Now let us add testing of preconditions in this unit test. I hope you remember in previous case we simply add preconditions like this, that if marks is 0 it should return false. Because preconditions was enforced through if statement, and if precondition is not satisfied, then our code is returning false. So that's why we can directly compare the output of this call with false, because if input is 0, our code is returning false. But in this case we can't check our precondition by using assert in this way, because if grade is 0, it is not returning false. Actually, it is raising this assertion error. We can check this. So you can see that it is not returning false if marks is 0. Actually, it is raising assertion error. So we have to handle this assertion error if input is 0. So we have to tackle this condition in a different way. And we can't use the same logic which we used in case of if preconditions are implemented with if conditions as discussed in our previous case. So we have to follow different strategy here, because this time it is returning assertion error. If my input is 0, it is not returning false. So it means we have to capture this assertion error if precondition is not validated. In order to capture this assertion error, we have exception handling in Python. So here I am using exception handling feature of Python to capture this assertion error. So you know that if grade is 0, it will raise assertion error. So this statement should be put in try section. So here I have added this statement under try block. It means if assertion error is raised by this assert statement, the control will be transferred to exception block, and it start with except, which say that if assertion error occurs, then it should print the message. And what is that message? And the message is the message which is raised with this assertion error, that is mark should be positive. So here what we are saying, that if grade 0 is raising assertion error, then exception will be raised, and the message of this assertion error is captured as a variable msg, and we are just printing its value. It will print the message mentioned during the assert statements which are used during enforcement of these preconditions. So same way here we are checking other preconditions, that if grade is negative, then If this raises an assertion error, it should be captured by this exception handler and it should print appropriate error message. Same way we can check the preconditions for string value. So if input is string, then this will raise assertion error which will be captured by this exception handler and it will print its corresponding error message. And after this we are just checking our boundary cases, and if everything goes well, then we are printing all unit tests are passed. It is also very important to note that all assertion error will be handled properly by these exception handler. Here all the assertion errors are handled appropriately by our exception handler. Then all the boundary cases will be tested, and if everything goes well, then we are printing all unit tests are passed. Let us execute this code. So you can see that we are getting finally all unit tests are passed. So in first case, it check for 0. So it is displaying message, it should be positive. We can even improve this message, marks should be positive and greater than 0. So let's improve our code. So let's check this now. So you can see that if input is 0, we are getting message mark should be positive and greater than 0. For -3, we are getting mark should be positive and 0. For AS, we are getting mark should be integer or float. Then in test all boundary cases. Finally, it is printing all unit tests are passed. So it means that here in the end, all cases are captured appropriately, and that's why we are getting the message all unit tests are passed. Now let's discuss the solution for this grade remark function. Here again we have two preconditions, that grade should be integer or float, and it should be greater than 0 and less than or equal to 100. This is our main code which is returning appropriate remark based on the input value of grade. In order to build unit test cases for this, so as discussed, we have to put all the preconditions under try and exception block. Here we are checking one preconditions for input 0. So we have put this under try and exception block. Here we are checking preconditions for input negative. So we have put this under try and exception block because it will raise exception and this will be handled by this exception handler. For string, we are also using try and exception block to capture that cases. Here I am checking my preconditions for string 2 times. So I have used try and exception block 2 times. One for input 23 as a string and another for input AS as string. So we have covered all preconditions by these try and exception blocks. After this, we have all the boundary cases as we discussed in our previous session. So this is the same code which I have used in our previous session. And then we are printing all unit tests are passed because all of these preconditions are handled successfully by these exception handler. And after this, we will be checking all boundary cases. And if everything goes well, we are printing all unit tests are passed. So let us execute this code to check the output. So you can see that we are finally getting all unit tests are passed. We have checked 4 preconditions. So you can see that we are getting appropriate 4 error message for those preconditions enforcement. So these unit test cases are working perfectly fine. And this is the way we can write unit test cases for our preconditions if they are implemented through assert statement. So I hope that through this discussion, you get a fair idea that how to create unit test cases for preconditions if they are enforced through assert statement. So this is all about this session. All the code discussed in this session is available in the description of this video so that you can directly practice this concept. Thanks for watching this video. God bless you.